Thank you very much, Bruce. Hi, folks. Thanks to all of you who are viewing at the moment. And as always, those who have signed up but unable to attend, the recording will be sent to you over the next couple of days. A little bit about AlmonTravel and our relationship with CARP. We've been in business since 2003, so a little over 17 years. We have a number of particular specialties, destination weddings in the Caribbean. We've done 130 of those over the past 10 years or so. We focus also on Florida, which is mainly the theme parks, great for extended family travel. Caribbean, our experience with destination weddings, means that we've been to the major destinations down in the Caribbean, and we know quite a few of the resorts, and we know the areas quite well. In addition to that, we specialize in cruises, ocean cruises as well, and have done many of the popular ocean cruise destinations. But one of our specialties is river cruises. We have personally experienced 10 different itineraries around the world. I have to say it's one of my favorite forms of travel. So travel conditions, anybody in Nova Scotia or the maritime provinces recognizes that, we have kept a fairly solid travel bubble over the last number of months. I think our last COVID case count yesterday was about 4 new cases. So we're doing very well there. We're hoping that we'll get to a level where we can actually enjoy Christmas with our families, which is something that can't be said for many places in North America. We know that vaccine is on the horizon, folks, and that's going to be the savior for everybody, but particularly for the travel business. Apparently we have 2,000 doses due in Nova Scotia in December, which is considerably less than we need, but there'll be a wider rollout as time goes, and that brings a light to the end of the tunnel for us. I'm actually seeing some tentative bookings now, and I would hope that people will recognize that travel will be safer. It just has to be. And that planning for travel will be something that people will start to do. This is the 13th presentation of about 20 planned, which occur at 6:30 every Tuesday, now into late February. Check the website, the CARP website, for recordings and upcoming presentations. Want to note that we at AlmonTravel are working on a presentation segment that will focus on solo travel, and this is our first foray into solo travel. And it's something that I discovered back maybe a month and a half ago, but became very interested in it because the demographic that I'm representing with CARP has probably a fair number of people that need to travel by themselves. So we're working on developing a solo segment for our travel business, and hopefully we'll be able to meet your needs with that. Solo travel, ideally, one of 2 things. Number 1, no single supplement or significantly reduced single supplement, or match you up with somebody of a like character, which Riviera River Cruises does not do. They give you the better of the deal, which is certainly the no single supplement on certain itineraries, and as I understand it, there are no single supplement cabins available in smaller numbers on virtually every cruise that's offered. I started off with CARP, Canadian Association of Retired Persons, asking us to look after the travel needs for all of the CARP members in Nova Scotia, and coincidentally New Brunswick and PEI as well. My contact is Bill Van Gorder of CARP. He's the COO and Chief Policy Officer for CARP National, as well as the founding chair for CARP Nova Scotia, in addition to being senior spokesperson for CARP in the Maritimes. I came to know Bill because I was working on a charitable foundation that he had developed. It was called 100 Men Who Give a Damn. And over a period of about 4.5 years, we raised $350,000 for local charities. all of this money went to the charities. We had no overhead whatsoever. It was completely volunteer. So I got to know Bill fairly well with that. In the process, he used my services to book both a river cruise and a Rocky Mountaineer train ride in the Rockies. And recognizing that I serviced him quite well, he asked us if we would be interested in looking after CARP Nova Scotia's travel needs. Of course, we said yes. So that's where we are with that. We started in November of 2019. 2 months later, COVID hit and everything was put on the back bench. But what I have done is to start these presentations by contacting representatives of different companies and asking them to tell us about something that's kind of unique about their company. And so, as I say, we're into the 13th presentation right now. Always can use your help, folks. I've got a great imagination, but if you have any suggestions as to presentations that we might be able to do that a lot of people would be interested in, by all means, please get in touch with me at danny@almontravel.ca, and I'll certainly look into it for you. I'd like to introduce now Marilyn Conroy, who is the Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing North America for Riviera River Cruises. Bruce Metzendorf is working in the background right now. We have communicated a fair bit over the last 4 or 5 weeks getting this set up. And these folks will be introducing us to a river cruise line, as I understand it, newly available in Canada, but perhaps Marilyn can correct me on that. And please take it over, Marilyn.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Danny, and thank you all for taking the time your evening to learn a little bit more about Riviera River Cruises. It's not a household name. Riviera is not a household name, but we have been in business for a total of 36 years. We are a British company. Our corporate headquarters are in the UK. I'm just getting this to move. Whoops, sorry. I'll get it in a minute. Here we go. Okay, so we are in fact the UK market leader in river cruising. And even though we've been in business a long time, we've only launched in North America just about 3 years ago. But you can see during that relatively short period of time, we've been the recipient of 3 very prestigious awards, the Magellan Awards, both in 18, 19, and 20. So that really is a great feather in our cap to be so well recognized in such a relatively short period of time. But why should you book Riviera? Because there's a lot of companies to choose from out there in the river cruise industry. But we are the only company that has at least 5 cabins on every single departure with no single supplement. We're the only company to offer entire departures exclusively with no single supplement across every single grade. And as Danny said, this is a very, very important segment of the travel industry today, because interestingly enough, 60% of the people over 65 years of age are single. And that could be divorced or widowed, or even it could be two ladies or 2 gentlemen who want to go on a cruise. They don't necessarily want to go with their spouses or their partners, but they don't want to share a cabin. So this is why this particular market is really growing exponentially. So we offer the most immersive itineraries. We have a total of 20 different itineraries on 10 European waterways. We boast the youngest fleet of ships in Europe. None of our vessels are older than 6 years, sorry. We have 12 vessels, none of them are older than 6 years. And that's considered to be very young. We are extremely price competitive. You'll find that we are, depending on the itinerary and the time of year, but we're probably about 20% less expensive than a comparable product. The long vessels, which we call the long vessels, it's actually a marketing statement because they can't be any longer than 433 feet or they won't fit through the locks, but they're significantly larger than our competition. And if we're going to use the 10,000-pound gorilla in the river cruise marketplace, Viking, our cabins are 48 square feet larger. That is significant. The boats are built and operated by Skiller of Switzerland. Skiller is the preeminent boat builder for European boats. And they also build the boats of one of our luxury competitors. And I can tell you on this closed audience, that's TAUC. That means the vessels are identical, but equally importantly to the hardware, Skilla also provides the food and the staffing on board. So you get the same high quality of food and service as you would on a luxury competitor. We've just come out with a new program. We're calling it Reassuringly Riviera. And I think this is very important for all of us who are naturally concerned about the situation with COVID. So essentially what we are allowing our clients to do is to change their booking with no charge up to 45 days prior to departure. COVID cancellation is included as standard. If for any reason you can't go because you've got COVID, then you are automatically allowed to cancel. And this is something that I don't think anybody else does. When you go on board, if by the day 2 you are not happy with your Riviera experience, we will bring you home, we will refund your passage, and we will bring you home incurring any additional expenses over airline charges, etc. So we really do basically put our money where our mouths are. So what can you expect with COVID? The onboard, whoops, sorry, this keeps jumping a little bit. I do apologize. The onboard protocols, because this is obviously top of mind for everybody. As I said before, our boats are owned and operated by Skilla, and they set incredibly high standards that we have to conform to. But in addition to that, we have gone above and beyond by hired a gentleman by the name of Ian Greaves, who is a member of the Chartered Institute for Environmental Health and Protection. And he is one of the leaders in protocols for COVID. So we're not only going by Skilla's standards, but we are taking and paying for his advice as well. But what will you be experiencing on board? Now, you have to understand this is taking into account the current travel advice. This is very fluid. When you sail next year in March or April, we will be adhering to the COVID protocols in place at that time. So it depends on what's in place at that time. But if you were to sail today, this is what you would have. Only registered guests, and I think this will probably be a long-term situation, but only registered guests and crew can go on board the ship. And that's after performing safety and health checks, such as temperature checks and hand disinfecting. Before embarkation, the entire ship, including the cabins, is cleaned, disinfected, and ventilated. The use of mouth masks is mandatory when walking around, and 6-foot social distancing or compliance with local guidelines is guaranteed. All meals are now served with no buffets being offered. In other words, all the meals are plated. Each cabin is disinfected twice daily, and the staff wear masks and gloves. All cabins are provided with a bottle of hand sanitizer. Let's take a look at the fleet for Riviera. As I said, we have a total of 12 vessels. We have a new ship coming out in 2021, the Geoffrey Chaucer. Now, this is a schematic that you can see the myriad of different features and facilities that we have to keep you occupied on board. Some people say, oh, there's nothing to do on board. Well, I can assure you there's plenty to do on Riviera. So if you take a look at it basically falls into 3 categories. You've got the long ships, which, as I said, are 443 feet in length, and that's the longest they can be in order to go through the locks. These take 169 guests. If you were to look at a competitor, the majority of them would take 190 guests, a lot more passengers. Then we have what we call the George Eliot type. They take 132 guests. And the smaller ships are on the Doro. They have to be smaller because it's a much narrower river, take only 121 guests. This just gives you a 30-second preview of life on board. Oops, it went back again. Sorry. Try it again. I don't know if you've got any sound. I'm not getting sound. But basically, it just shows you a preview of the shore excursions, a Spanish riding school, of course, in Vienna.
Our spacious cabins and suites, and tasting our award-winning service. Luxury river cruising costs less than you think at RivieraRiverCruises.com.
Well, essentially, it gives you a very, very brief feel for the vessel, which is a very elegant product, certainly not glitzy. So less is more. Less is more with Riviera. You know, it was interesting. We recently conducted a consumer study of what is the consumer likely to want when they start to travel again in 2021. And it came out loud and clear that for a European vacation that they were looking for smaller vessels. So this bodes very, very well for river cruising in general, or for the ocean liners, which are the smaller companies like Seabourn, Windstar, Silver Sea. But we are very, very bullish about 2021. So why is less more with Riviera River Cruises? Well, because we have less cabins than a lot of our competition, we are able to give you more room, more spaciousness in the public areas and of course, in the cabins themselves. This is just an elevation shot of one of the long ships. And as I said, we take 169 guests. The competition in the main would take up to 190 guests. So let's take a closer look at the accommodations themselves. This is a deluxe balcony. It's 269 square feet. You can see it has a walkout balcony as well as a French balcony. Another view of that particular accommodation. Then you have the Superior Suite, which is 247 square feet. It's a nice angled view, so you can actually watch television or look out the window at the passing scenery at the same time. Same cabin, just a different angle. These are the majority cabins, the French balconies, 183 square feet. 85% of our accommodations do have French balconies, and 183 square feet is considered very, very spacious. Another view of that cabin with the bathrooms, beautifully appointed marble bathrooms, very, very spacious. You could actually, if you wanted to, fit 2 people in there. These are the cabins, we call these the window view or duck view, but these are the cabins that are used for single occupancy with no single supplement on all of the regular itineraries. And you can see that in reality, they are a double cabin, but it's for single occupancy. All of the beds throughout the vessels do separate so that you can have this queen size bed, or you can have two separated singles if you wish. Another view of the bathroom, you can see it's got a hand shower as well as a rain shower, marble throughout. This is a little naughty, but it is a comparison of our 900-pound gorilla competitor, Royal Viking Line, showing you the difference in their cabins versus our cabins. You can see you can fit their cabin nicely into our cabin, giving you a total of 48 square feet in extra space. That's huge. If you wanted to, you could put a car in it or a great white shark, 112 iPads, but at the end of the day, it's 26% more space. And that's just one more reason why you should book a Riviera River Cruise. Less people, more space. Let's take a look at the lobby area. It's very spacious. It's beautifully appointed. You have a well-stocked boutique. You've got a concierge desk, a travel desk, obviously a reception area. This is the first view when you embark on the vessel. You can see here there's an elevator or a lift. Now that elevator goes through all 3 passenger decks. It does not go to the sun deck. So if you have some physical inabilities, impairments, please bear that in mind, because you're going to have to walk up these little steps here in order to get out to the sun deck. So you should bear that in mind. But you can see what I mean by the decor. It's traditional glam. It's glamorous. It's not glitzy, and it's certainly not stuffy. The Panorama Lounge, as it's called, is really the heart of the ship. It's essentially the same on every ship. The only difference, truthfully, is the decor. It's a beautiful 180-degree view of the river. And here is where you have your before dinner or after dinner drinks, your shore excursion talks, your light entertainment every evening. And we do often bring on board entertainers from local ports. So there's something going on. We have a disc jockey or a piano player. So it's never just nothing to do. I always call it the happening place. It's just another view of the same lounge at the back. So there's plenty of sun and shade. You can see it's a very, very spacious top deck. In the front, you've got beautiful wicker chairs. You've got the bridge with a bar here. Then you've got chaise lounges in the sun and the shade, golf putting green, and some kind of a water element on every single vessel. It could be a jacuzzi plunge pool like you see here, or a plunge pool where you can actually do 3 or 4 strokes across. And yes, it's heated in the winter time. Lots and lots of open spaces to enjoy the scenery as you go by. And that's one of the fun things when you're on a river cruise. You tend to sail, well, it depends on the itinerary, but quite often you're sailing in the early evening or early morning, and it's wonderful just to sit up there and watch the castles go by.
Yeah.
So because we don't take so many passengers, we have a lot more areas for you to enjoy, such as a massage studio or sauna. We have a beauty salon for hairdressing and manicures, pedicures, a gymnasium, and it is a nice gymnasium. It's just not an adapted cabin. It's a nicely equipped gymnasium. Food, obviously food is very, very important on any cruise, and I'm going to state right now, just because we're British, it doesn't mean to say our chefs are British. I do think, though, that the Brits have kind of gotten over that stigma. But again, because our staff are from Skilla, the staff are going to be European. So you could have a German chef, a French chef, Italian chef, whatever. But if you can see this, it shows you the type of cuisine that we serve. And it tends to take its theme, or the food takes its theme from the countries that we're visiting. So when you're in France, you're going to get more of a French theme. But there's always available simply grilled chicken or fish. So dining on board is very, very important. And here is something that I really want to emphasize. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's open seating, open dining. That means that you don't have to come down for dinner at a set time. Some river cruises, because the kitchens are small, they're small on every river cruise, they make you come down at a set time. And if you're coming late off of a shore excursion, you might not want to go down for dinner strictly at 7. So this allows you to come between 7 or 9 for dinner, and a staggered time for breakfast and also for lunch. The dining rooms are all laid out pretty much the same. The only difference is the decor. Now, one thing we are doing because of COVID, for dinner, we do ask now that you make a reservation, because we want the maitre d' to be able to ensure that he has the dining room spaced out properly. And before, you just came whenever you wanted to. But now we encourage you to make a reservation. They won't turn you down if you don't, just so that it's easier for us to ensure that we have that 6-foot social distancing. Every vessel has an alternative restaurant. It's inside and outside dining, obviously depending on the weather. There is no charge to dine here. It's just first come, first serve for lunch, but we require reservations for dinner. It's a little bit more intimate dining. You can see tables for 2 and tables for 4. You can see here what it looks like on the outside, of course, weather permitting. Less cost, more luxury included. You will see when you do a comparison for Riviera, and Danny, of course, will do this for you, that you can go on a solo cruise with a starting price of like $250 a day. That's inclusive of all your meals and your shore excursions. That is highly competitive. One of the things we do, we offer complimentary room service for breakfast across all grades, and it's not just continental room service. We have a coffee and tea maker in every cabin, so if your clients want, they can get up, make themselves a cup of tea or coffee, then order room service for breakfast, and then go on down, if they're so inclined, to the dining room. And people do that. So as you can see, these people are discussing their day's activity, having made themselves their own cup of tea or coffee. Riviera Plus, this is new for us this year. All of the cabins, superior cabins, we are giving them a welcome bottle of Prosecco, but we're giving out these smart handsets. These are little gadgets that have maps, translator, currency converters. You can do text messaging and make unlimited phone calls, whether you're on shore or actually on board. We have complimentary Wi-Fi regardless, but this little gadget enables you to be able to text your family back home whilst you're actually out on the shore. And we give a complimentary aperitif every single evening. We include in every single port of call a shore excursion. And what we do here is we specifically design them to give you a really good overview of the cities that you're visiting. But we try not to give you an overloaded day so that you don't have time to go out and explore on your own. Because personally, I think that's half the fun, is to go out in the city and explore all on your own. And we have tour guides that will help you put together your own excursions if you want. These guides will provide, if you want to go to a museum or the Spanish riding school, they will make the reservations for you, get you the separate tickets at no marked up cost. In other words, if the cost to the museum is 20 euros, that's what you're going to be paying, 20 euros. So they'll give you that one-on-one personalized service. And because we have plenty of time to go out and explore, one of the ways a lot of people like to do this is by use of the complimentary bicycles. Very popular. So let's see, because we're on the rivers, and more to see. Where can we take you? Well, we have a total of 20 different itineraries on 10 European waterways. And as you hear from this map, we go Spain, Portugal, and all of the main rivers in Europe, including our new itinerary, the Seine, which is round trip Paris to the Normandy beaches. As I said before, we have a total of 5 cabins on every departure with no single supplement. And next year, these are the cruises that we have where there's no single supplement across the board. They are listed here. You've got basically all months of the year and a wide variety of itineraries to choose from. We won the Solar Award for the company that recognizes most efficiently and proficiently the needs of a solo traveler. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at the itineraries. This is obviously a very, very popular itinerary. Get it to come up. And Clindenkerk and the Dutch bulb fields. That one is April 2nd. You can see the starting price here for a 4-night cruise. This round trip Amsterdam, but it takes you all the way into the Dutch bulb fields and of course to the beautiful city of Oekenstein, which is a 17th century city, and it of course gained its fame during the 17th century as a member of the Dutch East India Company. Now, I know that Danny, you've been here to these gardens and you've also been to downtown Amsterdam.
Yes. Amsterdam, it really is, if you have not experienced Amsterdam, you really ought to consider adding a couple of days. to your trip to be able to enjoy that. These pictures are pictures that I took. These are canals throughout the city. This is an example of a houseboat. Now, this actually might be available for rent, probably not through a travel agent, but anyway, people would live on that year round. A picture of me with statue of Anne Frank. Yeah, we went twice and unfortunately never got into the museum because the lineups were hundreds of people long. So you really have to plan that out very carefully and make sure that you take that in. The little river cruises, or I shouldn't say river, canal cruises, they have special boats that are completely glass roofs, and that's important because in the period of one day, you can probably have rain, sun, and maybe even a little bit of snow all in one day. So to be covered, with a glass roof is ideal. And you notice that the older houses, it's really interesting. If you look at the faces of them, they lean forward into the street. And if you look up at the very top window, there's usually a little projection. And what that's designed for is because the houses are so narrow, they are able to pull things up into the house, furniture, or back in the time of warehouses and so on, it would be goods that they would do that too. So yeah, Amsterdam is definitely worth a couple of days, pre or post.
Okay, our next itinerary, this is my favorite, is Burgundy, the River, Rhone, and Provence. The reason why I like this is that if you like Paris, as I do, it's a super way to just fly into Paris, spend a couple of nights in Paris, then you can take the TGV train, 2 hours, right downtown Lyon. So I may have mentioned that what Riviera prides itself on, one of the things we pride ourselves on is tweaking the itineraries to make them more immersive, to give you a better overall experience. And this is what we do here. We don't go round trip Lyon. A lot of our competition does. We go to Lyon to Avignon. And by doing it, Lyon to Avignon, it allows you to actually sail into that beautiful medieval city of Bonn, which is right in the heart of the Burgundy country. And if you were to be on a vessel that goes round trip Lyon, you'd have to take a bus to get there. And it's an hour and a half on a bus. Whereas with us, you sail right into the heart of Bonn itself. Burgundy, what can I say, is famous for its wines, wines and more wines. Pont de Garde, oh, it's an amazing Roman aqueduct. It was built in the 1st century AD. It was built to carry water over 50 kilometers to the Roman colony, and it's considered to be one of the best preserved aqueducts in the world. I don't know how they built it. Do you want to talk about this one, Danny?
Yeah, I've been on this routing, slightly different, and it's really interesting to note the differences between different kinds of river cruises. If you do a cruise from Budapest to Amsterdam, for example, it's thousands of kilometers, or at least 1,500 anyway. This particular cruise, if you look at Arles and Lyon, which are sort of two major parts of that, you can actually drive that in 5 hours, but it takes about 5 days by cruise to do it. Now, obviously you don't cruise very long, which is good in the sense that you spend more time at your destinations. The pictures that I've given here, this is examples, and we went in the spring. You go in the spring and usually the pricing is going to be better, but what the trade-off is that the vegetation is just starting to grow. So this is a vineyard, sample of a vineyard. Bottom left corner was wine tasting with chocolate. It was actually called wine pairing with chocolate. My wife Debbie, who's in a medieval town there, can't make it out very well, but if you had a bigger picture, you would see that that's definitely a medieval town there. And of course, you've got chocolateries, you've got bake shops, you've got fromageries all over the place. It's a wonderful experience just to duck into one of those and enjoy what they have to offer.
I mean, one of the things I like about this particular cruise is it's very rich in history. Of course, you've got Arles, you've got Avignon, but you've also got lots of wineries and these beautiful little villages and these wine shops where you just get a bottle of wine and some cheese and go back to the ship and sit on deck and enjoy yourself. And you just mingle with the people.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites, but anyway, that's me. Of course, that's Avignon, famous for Palace of the Popes. You know, we dock right outside. It's a walled city. So you're right on the river and you just literally cross a small road and you enter this walled city with no traffic. You've got a big center square with lots of little cafes. And of course, Palace of its Popes is famous for having, can you imagine, 9 popes under its roof at one time? I guess they all got along back then. Okay, this is probably one of the most iconic rivers is the Blue Danube. People who haven't been on a river cruise before, this tends to be their first cruise because, you know, it's very famous. It visits a lot of the major cities. And of course, Mozart and Johann Strauss speak for itself. So we start out here in Budapest. We go round trip Budapest. And that's important to note because a lot of our friendly competitors would go round trip Passau. We don't, because if you go round trip Passau, when you arrive, it's a 2.5-hour bus ride from the closest airport. And I don't think clients want to spend all day or night on an aeroplane and then have to spend 2.5 hours on a bus. So by going round trip Budapest, they're only 20 minutes from the airport. And Budapest itself is a beautiful city to do pre and post tours in. Very, very famous picture, of course, of Parliament Square. Budapest is 2 cities combined by one bridge. Bruce taught me how to remember the difference between the 2 sides. One side's very mountainous, that's Buda, because you think of a Buddha's tummy, and Pest is the flat side, the opposite of the Buddha's tummy. Put that in your book of useless information. Anyway, then you've got Salzburg, gorgeous, gorgeous city. You can revisit The Sound of Music because that's where it was filmed. Those of you who remember the Von Trapp family will know of the Von Trapp family. And of course, Vienna, what can you say about Vienna? It's the most magnificent city. And there's so much to see and do, not least of which is the Spanish riding school, but the boys' choir, the opera, just the city itself is so full of art and history and culture. And these are all solo departures, which we are highlighting for you. Rhine, Strasbourg, and Heidelberg. That's really getting into the heart of medieval Germany on the Rhine. And this one you can see takes you round trip Cologne. Heidelberg, it's just a picture of the old bridge there. So it's a beautiful old German city. Dates back, I think, to the 12th century, Heidelberg Castle. Strasbourg is probably one of the most photographed cities in Alsace. So it's German, French, Alsace, and you'll see if you look in any picture book of that region, you'll see Strasbourg very heavily featured. It's absolutely beautiful. And then something different to Spain and to Portugal with the Doro River. Okay, so the Doro, Porto, and Salamanca. This takes you a round trip into Porto. So it's great to do a pre or post in Lisbon. Airports are fairly close by. Porto is 11 kilometers, Vigo is 20 kilometers, and Lisbon is 289 kilometers. As you can see, it's round trip Porto, and it takes you all the way through and allows you to visit the famous city of Salamanca. Salamanca, it's very worth seeing. It's the oldest working university in Spain, dates back to the 1200s, and you can go there and see the schoolrooms, which were used with, they have the little children that have carved their initials 500 years ago in the desks. And I think it's incredible to see how they were naughty even then. So we take you for a full day tour of Salamanca, which includes a flamenco show.
Mhm.
And I think, yes, you were there as well, weren't you, Danny?
Yes.
Because that's your wife.
It was a wonderful trip. We spent a couple of days in Lisbon beforehand, which is highly recommended, and then went to Porto, which is what you're seeing there with the boats. The old boats there, those are actually boats that were designed to carry wine casks. And of course, the Doro River is well known for its port wine. I actually got to appreciate port, never liked it before from our liquor commission here in Nova Scotia. When you saw all of the different kinds of port that they could make there, it was, well, I got to appreciate it, and I'm actually drinking port regularly now. The other pictures, there was just, again, small picture in the middle there, statuary, which if you had a chance to see that, larger, the realistic detail of the statuary was incredible. We also got to visit this wine place called Sandaman, and the gentleman in the Zorro uniform down there with my wife is the representative for Sandaman. And then another example on the right of a medieval village, which has, partly.
Have a little bit of it.
Yep, that's fine.
And one of the famous things to see, here we go. No, I want to go back to Matthias Palace.
Yes.
Can you send me back, Bruce? I'm sorry. Well, you saw a flash of it, I guess. There we are. I mean, it's so beautiful. And of course, this is, you're talking about port, but this is the home of Matthias Rosé wine. And despite what you may think about the wine, good, bad, or indifferent, the place where it comes from is beautiful. The bottle, you remember the round bottle? And, the gardens and the palace itself, dating back to the 16th century, is most definitely worth seeing. So I think, Danny, we're going to have you talk about additional costs to consider.
Yes, a river cruise with almost anyone is not an all-inclusive affair, so it's important to recognize that there are additional costs. From Halifax, obviously, to get from your location, now if that's in Halifax or Dartmouth, we can help you to arrange a limo transfer. That's a really nice feature where somebody comes to pick you up in a town car at a prearranged time, and then of course is waiting for you when you arrive home too. And the flights from Halifax typically leave later in the nighttime, so it's nice not to have to worry about parking your car and then picking it up when you get back. Transfers to and from the airport to the ship. Those can be arranged through Riviera River Cruises, not included. I think they may be an included thing once Riviera actually offers flights from Canada. I don't know if that's the case, Marilyn, for US guests, if you're providing flights for them, transfers.
No, we don't. And the reason why we don't is because we don't have a huge amount of North Americans, Canadians. Right now, I would say that's only about 20% of our business. So we don't have people arriving in bulk. Those companies that do arrange for the transfers or include them, they get the flights that you arrive at the airport and they kind of stack you there for maybe 2 hours to wait till everybody comes, and then they put you on a bus.
Yeah.
So we don't. So it's better just you'll see our ports are usually very, very close to the airport. It's better we can arrange a transfer or just to take a taxi into town. But, quite frankly, when I've arrived off an international flight, I don't want to be waiting for somebody else who's going to arrive an hour later.
I've been in that situation myself, and it's not been pleasant, especially.
I just don't like it.
One of the departure times, and you have to
I
wait.
want to get where I'm going.
So optional tours and excursions included, every day. But as Marilyn mentioned at the beginning, the tour director can help you arrange something special. Just a question of letting that person know, and they can get the information for you, and then you pay for that at cost. Beverage package. $129 US allows you beer, wine, soda, juices at lunch and dinner, and the drinks on board the ship, beer, wine, soda, juices, and spirits are all available at a very reasonable price. When Marilyn told me the price, she mentioned something like €2.75 for a glass of good quality wine. I said, wow,
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So the other thing, of course, is anything that you buy, whether on board ship or off the ship, then that would be your cost. Gratuities are always left to the individual, but most people like to have an idea what the typical costs are. And Marilyn informed me that about €10 a day per person. And that covers the tour director and all of the staff on board the ship. When you do individual excursions, again, entirely up to you, but suggested that the bus driver that takes you on an individual tour, perhaps €1, and the local guide, perhaps €2. So that pretty well does it for costs when you do a river cruise.
Okay, now this is just a little minute, again, to give you a feel for Riviera when you can actually see it live, so to speak. This is just music, there isn't talking, so you're going to have to, I'll go over it, but you can see how we tend to sail at nighttime so that you get to enjoy as much as you can of the beautiful cities that you're visiting. Food is, of course, very important, and I think it's self-explanatory here that we do offer a superior level of food, obviously in service as well. Beautiful cabins, bathrooms, rain shower. The beds, again, do separate if you want 2 separate beds as opposed to 1 king together. We have a shore excursion every single day, and we design it specifically to give you a good overview of the city, but to allow enough time that if you wanted to go out and explore on your own. 85% of our cabins are French balconies. Lots of time just to explore the city if you want to. We pride ourselves on exceptional service, dining, lots of deck space, unbeatable value. The bar, as we said, is not a profit center for us. Beautiful food again. 2 different restaurants, no charge for the alternative restaurant. We bring local entertainment in on the evenings. Not every port, but on many of them. We have a 97% satisfaction rating. That's probably as high as you're going to get anywhere. Gymnasium, massage area, beauty salon, friendly staff. And it's just a great experience. So with that, I think we have some questions, do we not, Bruce?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, honestly, we only have one question up here with Carol, and she'd like to hear a little bit about the relationship with the operator. She missed the part where the ships are chartered or run by another company.
Skiller. Skiller is a Swiss company. They've been in business for many years, and they are actually a boat builder. They physically build the river boats and then they operate river boats. Now Talc buys their boats from Skiller. We lease them, and the reason why we lease them is because after 6 years, it's like leasing a car. You give them back. So that's one of the reasons why we can have a young fleet. We don't have to refurbish our ships. We obviously have to keep them up during the course of those 6 years. But after the 6 years, we go, thanks very much, they're yours, let's have a new one. And also by having them operate them for us, we get the advantage of their superbly trained staff and their food provisions.
Okay, so I don't have any other questions that were put on the into the box. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions, so please enter them now. Danny, anything else to follow up?
Yes, thanks, Bruce. I just it brought back a lot of memories. Our first river cruise was from Budapest to Amsterdam, and it's what got us hooked personally on river cruising and on selling river cruising as well. So you know, a lot of memories from pictures that we saw there. I want to emphasize to viewers that the Canadian prices that you saw on screen here were approximate. Obviously, the cruises are being sold in US dollars. Eventually, Marilyn was telling me that they were considering moving into Canada with, you know, with the Canadian branch with Canadian prices too, but COVID created a problem for that. So eventually that will happen, but right now we have to buy in US dollars. So the Canadian dollars that you've seen on the screens there is approximations, fairly close approximations, but it gives you an idea of costs so that you you can be prepared. Really want to talk about the smart handsets, and in fact, for those cabin categories that don't have that, I strongly recommend that people take cell phones with them. We, in fact, got lost, my wife and I, when we were on an excursion once. Took the wrong road, figured no problem, we'll be able to get over, and our cell phone didn't have a SIM card that we could actually call the tour director. So we knew that if we retraced our steps, we could find it, but we ended up being 15 minutes later. And you know, to have 25 people on a bus looking at their watches as you walk on is kind of an embarrassing thing. So yeah, the smart handsets, that's a fantastic benefit to have. You know, river cruising is my favorite form of travel. I really enjoy it. It's a combination of a relaxing, but yet at the same time invigorating form of travel. There's a fair bit of walking. There's a lot of cobblestones. There's a lot of steps and that sort of thing. So you have to be in reasonably good shape to be able to take advantage of it. But you will come back, I'm sure, raving about your experience.
Just we did have a quick question come in from Elizabeth, who is asking about how far in advance would she need to book a single cabin or solo cruise?
A solo cruise or the single cabins that are on every departure, they book very, very quickly. So you'd have to be booking like now for the latter part of 21. The solo cruises where the whole thing has no single supplement, those have very good availability. All of the ones I showed you on the screen, with the exception of one of them, have good availability. So it depends.
Yeah. I'll add something to that too. We've booked a lot of river cruises for people, and typically people will reserve their river cruise at least a year in advance. So I'm thinking that those sailings that have only 5 cabins, you may want to book earlier than a year in advance. So that's been my experience.
And remember,
yes,
2022 is available now as well. Again, remember 2022 is available if you're looking to even travel that far out. And those solo cabins on those departures certainly would be more available than you're going to find in the early part of 21. If you're interested in the Tulip Time cruises, which do tend to sell out very early because they only run through April essentially.
I'm very pleased to say
bulb fields.
Yeah, the bulb field.
My first river cruise booking for May 2022. I just hope that I'll be around for it. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, stop it.
That's a year and a half in advance, really. And I mean, the client is talking about, obviously, he's concerned about COVID. But she has booked an Amsterdam to Budapest river cruise. So it's not too early to be thinking about booking something in very late 2021. And Christmas cruises, I imagine you folks do those. Those
yes.
are up right into
Very
December.
popular.
Yeah.
We don't only just do Christmas market cruises, we actually do cruises over Christmas and New Year's.
Oh, wow.
Over Christmas and New Year's, yes.
Typically over Christmas and New Year's.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I want to thank Marilyn and Bruce for your interjections every once in a while. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's been very enlightening for me as well as present viewers, and I'm sure that anybody that clicks on this link at a later time will learn lots from it as well. So, but I just want to add a note before concluding. Next week, same time, Tuesday, December the 15th at 6:30, we'll learn about a bucket list destination for many. The Galapagos Islands is offered by Celebrity Cruises. Join me as Brenda Yeomans, who is the Celebrity Cruises Strategic Market Manager for Canada, takes us on an ecological adventure south of the equator to the Galapagos Archipelago. Did I say that right? Yes, I think I did. After that, we'll be taking a four-week break from presentations, resuming on January the 12th with a presentation on couples adult-only resorts in Jamaica. So again, a wholehearted thank you to Bruce and Marilyn for their introduction to Atlantic Canada of a fine river cruise line, one that we at AlmonTravel will enthusiastically be adding to our river cruise offerings. River cruise.
Thank you.
Riviera River Cruises. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And thank you all. And again, you will get a copy of this presentation as well to forward on or watch again. And again, thank you everyone for your participation this evening, and have a wonderful holiday season as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce.
Bye-bye.